All right, here we go, trekking trumpeters. A trumpet player's guide to being your own best teacher. In case you're bored with my book, I'll give you a good view, okay? Here we go. And I'll show you the pictures as they come up in the book here. It's a picture of young Eric Robbins portaging a canoe, probably up in the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. A wonderful place to visit if you enjoy anything of the outdoors, anything of nature, anything of peace and solitude. Here we are. Preface. Start with a canoe and finish with a submarine. So, you might be wondering what this book is all about. It's about me and how I got here. Got where? From where? Good questions. My path as a trumpet player and brass instrument teacher has been such an exploration that it's turned into my own book. When not practicing or performing, students invariably take over any teacher's mind. I find myself so engrossed in the questions, struggles, and opinions of my students. I can only thank all of my students because of their tenacity in questioning all the things I normally would not focus on or think about. They demand such constant attention that even when I am not with them, I'm still teaching and have become my own best teacher. I have been pushed to learn more principles, and in turn have been pushed to relearn all of the principles from my youth as well as what I have just learned. As I keep teaching and performing, I find myself relearning the same principles over and over again. Each time I go through a cycle of relearning principles, I find myself getting deeper into my understanding and finding new ways to apply them in my daily trumpet work. During this process, I was constantly scribbling notes in a tiny moleskin notebook that I would keep in my back pocket. The note-taking actually began my first year of college. I was a freshman at the University of Illinois, majoring in trumpet performance. What was previously one of my hobbies, trumpet playing, became the sole focus of my scholarly study. Being a performance major meant that I not only had to know all about trumpet, classical music, and music theory, but I also had to hone and perfect my skills as a musician in order to have a commanding presence on the stage as a performer. Thus, I took copious notes during my college years in my trumpet lessons and studio classes. This book took shape when I sat down at the computer and typed up all of those notes spanning the last 15 years. When I read my notes from the early years, they were extremely few in comparison to the notes I took during my working years. I happily attribute this to youth. I was very engrossed in my studies and education during college and rarely struggled in my endeavors. I usually did not take time to pause and reflect. Rather, I was steamrolling ahead, experiencing and doing at an incredible pace. As the years went on, I noticed my notebooks from after graduation, graduate school, and postgraduate school increasingly became more contemplative and thoughtful. The insights during these years were much more plentiful than my college years. However, I cannot argue that the observations noted during my graduate school years are any better or more sophisticated than during my college years, only that there are more observations noted at that later stage of my life. And following the trend, my working years fruited an even vaster quantity of observations, leaving me with a large pile of miniature moleskin notebooks full of my trumpet knowledge. And again, the note-taking wasn't any deeper in content than my grad school or college notes, yet most of these notebooks were filled during those later years while I worked as a professional trumpet player in orchestras and taught a little on the side. So where did I find myself at the end of my 15-year note-taking observations period? I suddenly found myself not taking notes anymore. What became a constant process of 10 to 20 observations on any given day abruptly turned to 0 notes per day. I noticed this after a couple of months. Every day I would load the pockets of my pants, keys in the front right, wallet in the back right, pen in the front right, phone in the front left, handkerchief in the back left, mini moleskin in the back left, and at some point, after about 2 months, I realized I hadn't taken any trumpet notes. I kept bringing my notebook with me, but realized that I simply wasn't taking any notes throughout the day. This went on for a few months, During these months, I was so focused on my own playing that I began to feel calm assurance as I practiced and performed around the world. I was connected with my own playing and fully understood the principles of trumpet playing from where I was at. I enjoyed this state until I knew that I had to reach the next level by going through and reading all of my notes from the last 15 years. Since I was more or less reading them chronologically, I figured it would be a good chance to type them up in case I lost or misplaced the notebooks. Once I finished typing them, I immediately knew I had gained from my own hard work. I had finally become my own best teacher. Being your own best teacher is a phrase commonly used in the classical music world. Some teachers throw it around like a catchphrase, and others say it incredibly sparingly. I remember hearing this for the first time when I was 10 years old. My trumpet teacher told me this one time, and it struck a deep resonance inside of me, and there it stayed for more than 20 years. I even used that phrase while teaching my own students, but it wasn't until I had finished typing up all of those observations that I knew I was embarking on a new journey of being my own best teacher. The next logical step was to document, organize, and explain. If my personal history wasn't any indication that the path forward would have just as many ups as downs, I knew that I wanted to level out the height of the ups and the depth of downs, and truly go for a more consistent me. My own experiences have taught me to really enjoy the good times and always learn as best as I can from the bad times. But seeing that it took me some 20 years to start to learn something for myself about how to systematically be a better trumpet player, I suddenly saw clearly how I wasn't learning all I could from both the bad times and the good. Put another way, I was simply floating in the ocean's calm waters on a sunny day during the ups and doing everything in my power to keep my head above the water during the downs. Why not build a vessel of musicianship, start with a canoe and finish with a submarine? Something that could take me out into the unknown and get to where I need to go. This book is my vessel. I hope I can share my vessel with you and in turn help you build your own vessel. Perhaps after you've finished filling a bunch of notebooks with observations towards a specific endeavor, you can outline them as I have in this book and take a similar approach to making all of these experiences truly part of who you are. All right. Thank you for listening to the preface. We'll continue on after I show you the pictures here. Nice little 1863 German conception of a submarine, complete with brass players. Photoed by Ernest Kyle. Pretty fun. All right. That's it for today's installment. The next one, we will carry on. All right. Thanks for listening. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye, Trekking Trumpeters.